Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we're going to have someone back we've had before, and they gave a good presentation last time, and I trust they're going to give a good presentation this time. Her name is Sara, and she's going to talk to us about star voting. So welcome to the podcast, Sara.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
We're glad to have you back, Sara. Kindly give us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch and the organization you represent.
Sure. So my name is Sara Wolk. I'm the executive director at the Equal Vote Coalition, which is a national nonpartisan nonprofit dedicated to fighting for true equality in the vote itself. And our mission is really laser focused on that piece of the larger election reform puzzle. The idea is that no matter how I vote, how you vote, our votes should be equally powerful, and the system shouldn't be playing favorites. Unfortunately, we have a long way to go, I have been dedicating, I think, the last 6 years of my life to figuring out how to solve this problem and raising the bar for voting reform proposals in general.
Sounds good. So before we discuss what your organization is doing these days, kindly tell our audience what you mean specifically by equal vote. How are votes not equal? What's the problem that you're specifically trying to address in your organization?
Yeah, so when we think about our modern political discourse, we often think of a hyper-polarized two-partisan landscape with a bunch of people falling through the cracks. And the reason for that is that our current voting method, and by that I mean choose one plurality voting, where you vote for one candidate, and if you don't think your favorite can win, you maybe should consider voting for a lesser evil candidate or being strategic in some way. That's our current voting method. And it works perfectly well if there's two candidates in the race, or if there's only two parties in the paradigm. But as soon as you add a third candidate, a fourth candidate, a fifth candidate, we see vote splitting. And that leads to the spoiler effect, where you can have what is ostensibly a majority coalition of candidates or voters end up divided and conquered. And we end up electing a winner who may have been opposed by the majority. So, and when I say the majority, I don't necessarily mean, left versus right, which one has 51% or more. When I say equality in the vote and leveling the playing field, the problem that we're talking about there really has to do with our current choose one, two-party system. Okay. And the reason we have a two-party system is because our voting method catastrophically breaks anytime there's more than two candidates in the race. That's where you can end up with a majority of voters supporting a couple of reasonable options and ending up splitting their vote between them, ending up divided and conquered. And in some cases, electing a candidate who is opposed by the majority. So if we had real representative elections, what that requires is letting voters show that they prefer any of the candidates they like over the candidates they oppose, and ensuring that even if you do have more good guys on your side, you're not at a disadvantage.
All right.
So that's what we're setting out to do with star voting. There are a number of good voting methods supported by the Equal Vote Coalition, including star voting, approval voting, ranked robin, proportional representation versions of all of these. But our flagship really is star voting, and the reason for that is that we see it as the voting method that goes the furthest to ensure that voters can vote their conscience, that your vote isn't wasted, and that we accurately elect candidates to reflect the will of the people.
Sure. So kindly tell our audience about star voting. So people are on this podcast are very familiar with ranked choice voting. So star voting, how is that different than ranked choice voting?
Yeah, star voting was really invented to go further and really deliver on the promises of ranked choice voting
All right.
while addressing a number of the known issues with ranked choice. So in terms of what are the issues with ranked choice, unfortunately, that's sometimes where we have to start the conversation, because I know I personally was really excited about it when I first learned about it. And the pitch I gave, people might say, yeah, that sounds like ranked choice voting. But the issue is that ranked choice works fine if there's only two viable candidates in the race and if your third-party candidates are all non-viable. So they're going to be eliminated right off the bat. People's votes will transfer as they should. You find a majority preferred winner as advertised. But in ranked choice, if you have three or more really competitive candidates or three or more and it's not clear who the front runners are, what can happen is that a candidate who was actually preferred over all others can get eliminated earlier in the process. That some people whose favorite isn't able to win will have their next choice counted and others won't. And that large amounts of ballots can end up getting voided or not able to be counted at all due to voter errors, because there's a lot of ways to accidentally mess up your ranked choice ballot.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, so star voting, the way that works is you have a 5-star ballot. You're able to score candidates from 0 up to 5 stars. And so that lets you show your preference order between the options, but it also lets you show equal support if you like 2 of the options the same or 3 of the options the same. So 5 stars for your favorite, 0 stars for your last choice, and score the other candidates in between as desired. If I have 2 candidates that I think are really good, I can give them both 4 stars. If I have 2 candidates who are my favorites, I can give them both 5 stars. Whereas in ranked choice voting, that can lead to your ballot being voided and thrown out. And that's something that we've seen consistently over the years in voter data from ranked choice elections. We're seeing, particularly in precincts that have higher numbers of people of color and lower income voters, ballots are being voided and thrown out at much higher rates. So even just looking at the last Oakland mayor's election, 13% of ballots had those types of overvotes, where candidates were actually filling out their ranked ballot as if it was a score ballot, giving equal rankings, skipping rankings in some cases, and in a lot of cases that can end up with your ballot just being completely thrown out, even when your voter intent was clear. So with star voting, your vote is always counted. All of those scores that you give will be counted in a 2-step process. So, like I said, with star voting, score candidates from 0 up to 5 stars for your favorite. The 2 highest scoring candidates overall are finalists. Your 1 full vote goes to whichever finalist you scored higher. So you end up with a finalist preferred by the majority, if a true majority winner does exist.
Sure. So we last talked with you on this podcast in 2021, as memory serves me, and I'm going to see what I can do about posting the link to that episode in the show notes if someone wants to go back and hear that. So what has happened with the organization with star voting since 2021?
Yeah, 2021 and 2020 was a really powerful and challenging time for us, and I think for a lot of people in the political landscape. For us in particular, we've always been a very grassroots-oriented group. Even we were founded in Oregon, and so we have strong chapters in Eugene, Oregon, where I am, and Portland, Oregon. But we also have chapters all over the country, and those are made up of volunteers who we support to figure out how they can work on voting reform in their area. So whether that be outreach, education, giving presentations, creating resources, working on projects, it's all very grassroots led and self-directed, and then we're here to just help set people up to win. So when the pandemic hit, we were very much having in-person meetings all over the place and building a lot of community in the space. We had coalitioned with Represent Us here in Oregon and in a few different states, and with other groups working to fight two-party domination or to, fight for better voting. And when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden we couldn't meet in person. And at that time, we actually had 2 ballot initiatives underway, one for Lane County and one for Eugene. And we ended up making the tough call to suspend the canvass during lockdown. So we ended up having all of the signatures we had collected basically thrown out and having to start from scratch.
Oh, no.
So it was a pretty big setback for us in a lot of ways. But in retrospect, we, I think, benefited a lot from it at the same time. So we took that opportunity to really go global and to start having all of our meetings on Zoom. And what that meant is that we're able to have meetings with people all over the world. And we do have people all over the world and all over the country engaging with us and working on our committees and coming to our democracy discussions or having us on their podcasts from all over the place. So that's been really dynamic and I think has helped star voting as an idea really launch onto a larger stage.
Sure. So you say all over the world. So because you're focused on the United States, are these people in different countries, are they trying to implement star voting in their area, or are they interested in our system? For example, on our podcast, we have people from other countries I see in our Instagram who are interested in American politics, for the sake of American politics. What's the case with that, do you think?
Yeah, so we definitely have people in Canada and in Latin America, and as well as Europe and Asia in a few cases, who are really interested in changing their voting method in their country.
Okay.
And star voting in particular is just fantastically adaptable. Because of the way that automatic runoff works, your one vote goes to the finalist you prefer, and every voter's vote counts in that final round, unlike ranked choice where a lot of votes aren't able to make it to that final round. So star voting is compatible with election law all over the country. It's constitutional pretty much everywhere as far as we can tell. And it really slots into existing systems. So whether people want to upgrade their single winner elections, if they want to move to multi-member elections, or if they want to do proportional representation, or even in countries where they do proportional representation already, star voting is a really viable alternative that can just fit in and upgrade things without needing to really restructure the larger system completely.
Sure.
So we see it as...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but we see it as one piece of the puzzle for electoral reform, but really the piece of the puzzle that needs to come first in terms of order of operations. And that's because star voting is a win-win. Everyone on any side of the political spectrum is currently suffering from our broken system. And whether or not people identify as a major party voter, a minor party voter, a person in power or not, but voting in the spoiler effect can really erratically train wreck your election results. So anyone who believes that they deserve to win fair and square and who wants to be incentivized to reach out to a broader base and be rewarded for doing so is pretty much set up to get behind star voting. And same with people who are, really concerned with election integrity. And that's a conversation we've seen evolve and change dramatically in the last couple of years.
How so?
So with voting reform, I think a lot of more traditional or conservative-minded people will look at it and say, our current political system's, kind of toxic and problematic, but it's simple and we know how to do it, and I'm not, open-minded to change. And with star voting, I think we have a really good response to that. So star voting is counted just using basic addition. You're adding up the stars in the first round, and then you're adding up the votes in the second round. So it really works like a primary and general election all combined into one.
Oh, okay.
And because it's addition, it's completely compatible with our current election infrastructure. It doesn't require centralized tabulation. Ballots can be tallied box by box as they come in. It's totally compatible with hand counts and current voting machines. It doesn't require new infrastructure or protocols. It's compatible with risk limiting audits. And none of that is true of ranked choice voting. So with ranked choice, most of the rankings that a voter puts down on their ballot will never be counted on average. And so that means that you have to centralize all the ballots to figure out the order of elimination, to figure out which rankings count. And that adds a ton of complexity to the entire system. So we've seen pretty unprecedented fails with ranked choice voting that I think have given people a lot of pause. And we're seeing a massive backlash against ranked choice voting in general, or specifically, but also voting reform in general. And
Okay, that's what I was afraid of, that they would be voting reform as well for one that would fail. Huh.
yeah, and that's terrifying to us, and that's a bit of an I told you so in a few different ways. So our organization has been working on education around some of these issues and trying to address and solve these issues without just sweeping them under the rug for a long time. So if we want to have preference voting, if we want to have more choice, more voice, we don't need to centralize all the ballots. We don't need a convoluted tally with multiple rounds where people are glossing over key details. And we definitely don't need to sacrifice risk-limiting audits or election security in the process.
Sure. So now that
I don't know if
I cut you off. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know if you heard about what happened or almost happened in North Dakota, or with this kind of wave of ranked choice voting bans around the country.
I don't think so. Kindly elaborate.
Yeah. So this year, this legislative session, a number of states put forward bills to ban ranked choice voting.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
Ranked choice is already banned in Florida and in Tennessee, but bills to ban it in, I want to say Wyoming, and maybe I'm getting it wrong. I should look it up. In a few other states did pass this year, and one of them that was put forward was a ban on ranked choice voting in North Dakota. So the thing that's interesting about North Dakota is they have approval voting there. They were the first city in Fargo to adopt approval voting, and it passed by a wide margin and has been going great. But following the election in Alaska that just happened this year, we ended up seeing massive Republican backlash, because that Alaska election saw 60% of voters ranked a Republican first choice. They had 2 Republicans versus 1 Democrat. Everyone was told vote splitting was eliminated, but lo and behold, Republicans split the vote. The kind of center Republican was eliminated right off the top, and the Democrat won. So people all over the country saw that as just a wildly and obviously unfair example of ranked choice kind of pulling the wool over people's eyes, telling people what they wanted to hear, and then doing a bit of a bait and switch. So that's why North Dakota legislature put forward this ranked choice ban, even though they don't have ranked choice voting. But the ban wasn't just about ranked choice. It included approval voting.
Oh, no.
So we were pretty terrified, from the sidelines watching this go through as the House passed the bill by supermajority, the Senate passed the bill by supermajority, and then thankfully the governor ended up vetoing the bill because he saw it as a gross overreach of state power over a local municipality.
That's good.
So approval voting does stand, but just barely. And then there was another bill in Arizona that would have banned all alternative voting methods across the board. It was just really widely, generally written. And luckily that one didn't make it through either. But ranked choice itself ended up being banned in a number of states.
So with ranked choice in this predicament, I remember, now that you referenced the Alaska race, I do remember hearing about a very prominent Alaskan Republican who lost and blamed ranked choice voting. So do you think, because you have reservations with ranked choice voting, do you think there's merit to their views, or do you think they're against alternative voting because they lost? Like some people say they're against it's sour grapes because they lost.
I think it's a bit of both, and
Okay.
and I just actually looked up my data that I was forgetting. But
good.
Tennessee, Florida, Idaho, and Montana are the 4 states that have banned ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
And in terms of why Republicans are so upset about what happened in Alaska, I don't think it's just sour grapes. Their faction, their coalition had, 60% of the vote. And yes, it wasn't like a solid coalition. There was Sarah Palin, who was actually the most polarizing candidate in the race. And so
Sure.
Palin voters who thought, we should have won, they're wrong. The ballots were very clear that she came in last place. She was the least preferred candidate overall. But the more moderate Republican definitely was preferred over the Democrat by 53% of voters. So, yeah, it's hard to argue with those numbers because the ranked ballots just show, Nick Begich was preferred by 53% of voters compared to Mary Peltola, but Peltola won. And that's what we're talking about with these sideways outcomes. And then Sarah Palin voters really have even more to complain about. The reality is that most lay voters have no idea how the intricacies of ranked choice works or how their vote counted or backfired. But for Palin voters, if a large number of them had voted strategically, had voted for their second choice as first choice, or voted lesser evil, pretty much how they would have in the current system, then their second choice would have won instead of their last choice. And if a large number of them had not voted at all, then he would have won. So their second choice would have won.
Okay.
So the fact that they showed up and voted honestly under ranked choice meant that their vote backfired and actually helped elect their worst case scenario. And that is a weird sideways outcome that does happen in competitive ranked choice elections. So for people looking to break two-party domination or looking to level the playing field, a system that breaks when we have multiple competitive candidates in the race is literally constructing a glass ceiling over American politics.
Oh my. That's not something people would expect necessarily.
Yeah, and it's very counterintuitive. It's very confusing. So that's a big issue. Our elections should be transparent. It should be safe to vote your conscience. Or at least with the current system where voters do have to be very strategic to get representation, it's very clear and transparent how to navigate the system. But a system where some voters are going to navigate the strategy correctly and other people aren't really sets us up to disenfranchise large blocks of voters who aren't going to get the election science behind it. And then when we get an unfair outcome, that's where you risk, massive backlash where people see, their exact scenario wasn't fair. What they'd been told wasn't true. Their votes were wasted. Their votes did backfire. It wasn't safe to vote their conscience. There was vote splitting and the spoiler effect. And that's where I think, see ranked choice having the potential to do quite a bit more harm than good.
Oh, no. So given these developments, these failures of ranked choice voting, as you put it, has that changed your strategy in how you are advancing your star voting?
It really hasn't. Our strategy has just been voter education around star voting and around ranked choice and around the alternatives and public outreach and grassroots organizing from the beginning. So that's what we're going to keep on doing, and I think it's a smart strategy.
Sure.
What we're seeing, though, is that demand for star voting has skyrocketed just because people are being disillusioned with some of the other alternatives out there. So the need for star voting has increased. That's promising to hear. You would be afraid that if ranked choice voting or some other alternatives fail, then people might scrap the alternatives altogether. So it's good that people still are wanting alternatives. Yeah, and I think that's where podcasts like yours have a big role to play in getting out the word about what did happen with some of these sideways ranked choice elections. And there's a few more I could talk about, but I know we want to get to the positive work that we're doing and not just the issues coming down the pipeline. Sure. So what else has your organization been doing since the end of the pandemic? It ended a couple months ago officially. It was on the decline for a while. So how has your organization changed since the pandemic? Are you getting back to the in-person stuff and complementing that with Zoom, or how are you approaching things now? Yeah. So last year we really started thinking big picture in terms of our strategy for 2024 and the current election cycle. And what we are doing is we've launched a pair of twin ballot initiatives in Oregon and in Eugene, Oregon. Oh. So for Oregon last year, we started signature collection on an initiative that would make star voting the default voting method for all of our elections. So our local races are already nonpartisan. It would be star voting with no primary at all, just all the candidates on one ballot. And then for our statewide races, which are partisan, star voting would be used in the party primaries and then again in the general election to ensure that voters really can vote their conscience. And we really will get a majority preferred winner that represents the people. And then the timeline for that is that if we collect enough signatures for 2024, star voting statewide will be on the November ballot. Oh. And then for Eugene, which is in Central Oregon, we're collecting signatures as well for a local ballot initiative that would make star voting the default voting method for citywide elections. And that actually has a shorter time frame. So we're going to be collecting signatures just this summer. Oh. And over the next 100 days, hopefully qualify for the ballot. Star voting would be on the May ballot next year. People can vote yes. And Eugene voters have actually already voted yes on star voting. We almost passed it countywide, but when we looked at the city statistics, 54% of voters had voted yes. So we're really, really hopeful that Eugene is doable, winnable, and that kind of 1-2 punch will set us up for a bigger win statewide in November.
Sure. So since you said they got 54% of the vote, does that mean that in your state, in Oregon, it has to be 66%? Is that why 54% didn't pass?
No, so in 2018, we had a Star Voting for Lane County initiative, and countywide, we got 48% of the vote, so not quite that 50 that we were aiming for.
Okay.
But when we looked at City of Eugene voters, which the City of Eugene is smaller than the county,
Sure.
a solid majority had actually voted yes. And in the areas where we'd actually campaigned the hardest and had meetings and had lawn signs, over 70% of people voted yes on Star Voting.
Oh, okay.
And with, at that time, what was like a brand new proposal, we didn't have a great website, we didn't have a campaign manager, we didn't have great funding. For us to have gotten over 70% in some areas really shows the viability of an idea like Star Voting. The public was really excited about it. So that, it's difficult to go out and lose your first campaign, but for an idea like Star Voting to have done that well on its first showing without real, without the infrastructure and the funding that would make a campaign like that viable, really, I think, lit a fire under us and proved that this campaign can win and that voters do want it. We just have to get the word out.
Sure. So since then, your organization has gained funding and gained structure?
Yeah, absolutely. So we incorporated as a 501c3 in 2019, and then founded a partnered 501c4, Star Voting Action, that's really a campaign fund for Star Voting campaigns in general. So for people who want to support us, make donations, you can donate to Equal Vote, which is our nonprofit, and have a tax-deductible donation at equal.vote/donate. Or if you want to donate to the Star Voting campaigns and see us pilot Star Voting so that it'll be more viable in your area as well, people can donate at starvoting.org/donate.
Okay.
And, so having the ability to fundraise and have those tax-deductible donations and receive tax-deductible grants from larger organizations is a big deal for nonprofits because it is obviously hard to keep these kinds of projects funded. And if we are planning to win for Oregon statewide in 2024, we're going to need some more funds.
Sure. Before we recorded the podcast, you were telling me about you have something that's going on this very day, if I remember correctly, and I plan to get this podcast up after some editing today, if possible. So if you can tell our audience what you have planned today, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so today is really exciting. It's actually the campaign launch party for our Star Voting for Eugene ballot initiative. And we're having that down at Oakshire Brewing, which is a great local brewery. And we'll have a photo booth there. We're going to take star-themed photos and do some star voting on different beers that they have available and do some videos about why people are engaged in this movement, why we care, why this cause, why now, why us. So, yeah, we're really excited to launch this campaign, pass Star Voting in Eugene, and put it on the map so that it's a viable option for voters everywhere.
Sure. So for people who are in Eugene, you said that's at, what's the brewing place called?
It's called Oakshire.
Oakshire, okay.
Oakshire Public House.
All right. So that sounds like fun for people who are in the area. Are you going to, you say you're going to record videos, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so afterwards, if people aren't able to make it, they can see the information on the videos, right?
Yeah, definitely if you haven't already, everyone should go to starvoting.org, click
Okay.
that join button or sign up, and that'll get you on our email list. That'll get you an invitation to join our volunteer network. We do a lot of organizing on Slack. So
Oh.
volunteers from anywhere, if you sign up there, you can opt in or out to our email list. You can get onboarded to our team and get a one-on-one volunteer orientation where we'll find an action item for you that really plays off your skills and interests and gets you able to participate and make a difference and be part of this incredible movement we're trying to build.
Sure. So it sounds like you're interested in a broad range of people. Are there any particular skills that you're looking for that could help this movement?
Yeah, really all of the skills are valuable. So we have a software development committee that's doing incredible work. They're building a new upgraded version of our Star.vote website where you can vote using Star voting for your election, and currently that's fantastic for polling and kind of casual voting, but the upgrade is going to have full credentialing and all the bells and whistles of professional elections for groups or political parties that want to trial Star voting. So that committee is looking for beta testers, and we actually have an event tonight at the same time as our campaign launch for everyone who's not in Eugene to log on to that beta testers event, try out the new Star Voting app, and let us know, if it's working, what you would change, feedback on design, and user input. So that's a really great way to get involved. And we'll have those regularly. We've got a video committee that's doing great video work. We have people writing articles all the time, or sending emails, definitely writing your legislature and your city council and letting them know about Star voting is an easy thing to start with. And really, any skill you have, we can put it to use.
Oh, good to know. So people out there, if you think your skills aren't going to apply, they said they can find a way to apply them.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really fun project to be a part of. Our volunteers are what make me able to keep doing this work day in and day out, because voting reform can be a long game. It can be a slog.
Sure.
But our team is incredible, and currently we only have 2 people on staff, but we function like an org that has 2 dozen people working, because that's how many people are working at a really high level on a day-to-day basis. So we have a lot of people who put in significant amounts of time and really treat this professionally like a second job, or maybe even with, I don't know how they do it, their main job, but they do amazing work for us. So whether people want to put in, a couple hours once and then check back in a few months later or come to a chapter meeting, whether people are introverted or extroverted, there's a lot of different ways to be involved.
Excellent. Excellent. It's good to hear that your organization is continuing to evolve and improve.
Yeah.
This call is now being recorded.
So, Sara, we thank you for coming on the podcast today and talking about the changes your organization made and the continuous work you're doing to get this into motion. And we trust sooner or later, hopefully sooner rather than later, this will go into effect all over the place.
Yeah. Thank you so much for helping us spread the word. Definitely for anyone interested in looking up Star voting, ranked choice, I encourage everyone to do that deep dive, because it's really eye-opening, and this isn't the dark ages. We have a ton of science on how these systems perform, statistical analysis, voter behavior, and real-world data to look at. So this is, I think, one of the most fundamental and impactful issues of our times, and it's important to get it right.
Sure. It sounds like there's science behind it.
Absolutely. listen to the
All
science.
right. Yeah, good. So, Sarah, kindly one more time give the addresses for your website so people can go there if they want to.
Sure. So we have we actually have 3 websites. Our nonprofit website is equal.vote.
All right.
Our star voting website is starvoting.org.
All right.
And for people who want to use star voting and create their own election or vote in an existing poll and try it out for yourself, the website for that is star.vote.
Star.vote. Okay. 3 websites. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sarah, we wish you luck in your campaign and your activities today, your launch party, everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you for what you're doing as well. It makes a big difference.
That's nice of you to say. So we wish you all the best in your personal and professional endeavors. Take care and all the best.
Fantastic.
Bye now.
Bye.